12 agonizing days have come and gone, and still there are no answers for the families of those who vanished on Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Their frustration and sadness came pouring out in front of the cameras in Malaysia on Wednesday, where some of the grief-stricken relatives staged an emotional protest over what they say has been a lack of information about what happened. There's also growing anger among families in Beijing, where that jetliner was supposed to have landed. CNN's Pauline Chu will show us how relatives there are coping in just a moment. But first, Kyung La in Kuala Lumpur brings us the emotional scenes that unfolded there.
One woman's desperate protest. She wails, "My son, Li, was on the plane." As cameras roll, police and the Malaysian military move in. Through a crush of reporters, police forcibly carry her away from the cameras to another room. We were all here for the government's daily news conference. Two other Chinese women hold up a protest sign, crying out to the cameras. "We need the truth," she says, and want the international media to help get information from the Malaysian government. But police move in again.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Pushing us, forcing us out of the way.
Back up! Back up!
I'm yelling because we're getting crushed. Police also carry those women away. That's just one sense of the frustration that's mounting here, not just in Malaysia, but also in Beijing. Families extremely distraught. They just don't know what's happened to their family members.
You were in the room with them. What happened, sir? What happened?
Back inside the conference room, the government started its news briefing on time, referring to the women's protests only briefly.
I fully understand what they are going through. Emotions are high.
Back outside in the hallway, the door opens and closes for the police and officials. Where did you take the family? Ignoring our questions until finally, once again blocked by police, officials refusing to talk to us.
No comment.
They've been
Li's mother was taken away from the building by police. We don't know where, but could see she was still sobbing. Kyung La, CNN, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia.
Every day they shuffle in and out of the Lido Hotel's grand ballroom, which has turned into a briefing room. Ye Lun comes with his sister. Her husband was on the flight. Ye Lun says, every morning she has hope when she comes to the briefing. She hopes for a miracle. Then they simply make vague statements and she loses hope again. It's like this every single day. But instead of concrete information, hundreds of passengers' relatives get little guidance. The stress, sadness, frustration, boiling over with how they say Malaysia has handled the tragedy. This mother says, "This is my only child. We are respectable Chinese people. It's hard to control your emotions when you might have lost your loved ones. We want the truth." In the early days, Malaysia airline executives gave briefings to the families. Now the airline's legal team and other lower-level employees come. The Malaysian ambassador came twice last week to answer questions. Now families say they haven't heard from any embassy officials. The families turn to each other for support. They check their smartphones for updates, and from their Beijing hotel rooms, watch the nightly news conferences out of Kuala Lumpur for any new leads. Well into the second week of the search, families are now starting to ask what their legal options are, whether or not the plane is found. Some families are talking about suing the Malaysian government over the delays and confusion in the search. Aviation litigation attorneys from the U.S. have shown up at the hotel.
I have some contact. They invite me here. After this conference, they will invite me to their conference or their hotel to have some further conversation.
As they consider what to do next, the families continue to wait and wait. Their lives kept on hold. The relatives have started a family self-help support group because they say they're not getting enough support from the Malaysian government or Malaysia Airlines. They are taking down names and learning about each other's jobs so they can maximize each other's skills during this nightmare of an experience. Pauline Chu, CNN, Beijing.
Well, as for the investigation itself, here is the latest on where things stand. The flight simulator found in the captain's home has been the subject of some speculation. Malaysia's transport minister says some data had been deleted from it. Experts are now trying to recover it. We don't know whether it might be significant. Malaysian authorities also saying on Wednesday that background checks have been completed on all passengers except those from Russia and Ukraine. We are told the checks that have been done turned up nothing suspicious. Also, Australian search teams are zeroing in on a specific section of the Indian Ocean. They say it is based on work done by US investigators concerning how far the jet could have flown on its fuel reserves. Well, we've obviously heard a number of theories about what may have happened to Flight 370. One former pilot says the pilots may have been trying to save the plane after an onboard emergency. His take on what may have happened later in this